Hans Christian Andersen, den lille pige med svovlstikkerne.
Hans Christian Andersen, The Little Match Girl.
Det var så grueligt koldt. Det sneede og det begyndte at blive mørk aften. Det var også den sidste aften i året, nytårsaften.
It was terribly cold, it was snowing and it was getting dark in the evening. It was also New Year's Eve, the last evening of the year.
I denne kulde og i dette mørke gik på gaden en lille, fattig pige med bart hoved og nøgne fødder. Ja, hun havde jo rigtig nok haft tøfler på, da hun kom hjemmefra, men hvad kunne det hjælpe?
In this cold and darkness, a little poor girl walked on the street with a bare head and bare feet. She had, of course, worn slippers when she left home, but what good did it do?
Det var meget store tøfler, hendes mor havde sidst brugt dem, så store var de, og den tabte den lille, da hun skyndte sig over gaden. I de 2 vogne kørte så grueligt stærkt forbi. Den ene tøffel var ikke at finde, og den anden løb en dreng med. Han sagde, at den kunne han bruge til vugge, når han selv fik børn.
They were very large slippers, her mother had last used them, that's how big they were, and the little girl lost one of them when she hurried across the street, as 2 carriages drove by so terribly fast. One slipper was not found, and a boy ran off with the other. He said he could use it as a cradle when he had children himself.
Der gik nu den lille pige på de nøgne små fødder, der var røde og blå af kulde. I et gammelt forklæde holdt hun en mængde svovlstikker, og et bund gik hun med i hånden.
Now the little girl walked on her bare small feet, which were red and blue from the cold. In an old apron she held a quantity of matches, and one bundle she carried in her hand.
Ingen havde den hele dag købt af hende. Ingen havde givet hende en skilling. Sulten og forfrossen gik hun og så forkommen ud, den lille stakkel.
Nobody had bought any from her all day long, nobody had given her a penny. Hungry and chilled she walked and looked so miserable, the poor little thing.
Snifnuggene faldt i hendes lange gule hår, der krøllede så smukt om nakken, men den stads tænkte hun rigtig nok ikke på.
The snowflakes fell on her long yellow hair, which curled so beautifully around her neck, but she certainly didn't think about that.
Ud fra alle vinduer skinnede lysene, og så lugtede der i gaden så dejligt af gåsesteg. Det var jo nytårsaften, ja, det tænkte hun på.
From every window, the lights shone, and the street smelled so deliciously of roast goose. It was New Year's Eve, yes, she thought about that.
Henne i en krog mellem 2 huse, det ene gik lidt mere frem i gaden end det andet, der satte hun sig og krøb sammen. De små ben havde hun trukket op under sig, men hun frøs endnu mere, og hjem turde hun ikke gå. Hun havde jo ingen svovlstikker solgt, ikke fået en eneste skilling.
In a corner between 2 houses, one a little further out into the street than the other, she sat down and curled up. She had pulled her little legs under her, but she was even colder, and she didn't dare to go home. She hadn't sold any matches, hadn't received a single penny.
Hendes far ville slå hende, og det var også koldt hjemme. De havde kun taget lige over dem, og der piblede vinden ind, skønt der var stoppet strå og klude i de største sprækker.
Her father would beat her, and it was cold at home too. They had only taken the roof above them, and the wind was seeping in, although straw and rags had been stuffed into the largest cracks.
Hendes små hænder var næsten ganske døde af kulde.
Her small hands were almost completely dead from the cold.
Ak, en lille svovlstik kunne gøre godt.
Oh, a little match could do some good.
Turde hun bare trække en ud af bundet, stryge den mod væggen og varme fingrene.
If only she dared to take one from the bundle, strike it against the wall, and warm her fingers.
Hun trak en ud, Rich, hvor sprudlede den, hvor brændte den. Det var en varm, klar lue, ligesom et lille lys, da hun holdt hånden om den, det var et underligt lys.
She took one out, swish, where it crackled, where it burned. It was a warm, clear flame, like a little light. As she held her hand around it, it was a strange light.
Den lille pige synes, hun sad foran en stor jernkakkelovn med blanke messingkugler og messingtrumle. Ilden brændte så velsignet, varmede så godt.
The little girl thought she was sitting in front of a large cast-iron stove with shiny brass balls and a brass drum. The fire burned so blessedly, warmed so well.
Nej, hvad var det? Den lille strakte allerede fødderne ud for os at varme disse, da slukkedes flammen. Kakkelovnen forsvandt. Hun sad med en lille stump af den udbrændte svovlstikke i hånden.
No, what was this? The little one had already stretched out her feet to warm them too when the flame went out, the stove disappeared, she sat with a little stub of the burnt-out match in her hand.
En ny blev strøget, den brændte, den lyste, og hvor skinnet faldt på muren, blev denne gennemsigtig som et flor.
A new one was struck, it burned, it shone, and where the light fell on the wall, it became transparent like a veil.
Hun så lige ind i stuen, hvor bordet stod dækket med en skinnende hvid dug, med fint porcelæn, og dejlig dampede den stegte gås, fyldt med svisker og æbler.
She could see straight into the room where the table was covered with a shiny white tablecloth, with fine porcelain, and the delicious roast goose steamed, filled with prunes and apples.
Og hvad der endnu var prægtigere, gåsen sprang fra fadet, vraltede hen ad gulvet med gaffel og kniv i ryggen, lige hen til den fattige pige kom den, da slukkedes svovlstikken, og der var kun den tykke, kolde mur at se.
And what was even more magnificent, the goose jumped off the dish, waddled across the floor with fork and knife in its back. Straight to the poor girl it came. Then the match went out, and there was only the thick, cold wall to be seen.
Hun tændte en ny.
She lit a new one.
Nu sad hun under det dejligste juletræ. Det var endnu større og mere pyntet end det, hun havde set gennem glasdøren hos den rige købmand sidste jul.
Now she sat under the most beautiful Christmas tree. It was even bigger and more decorated than the one she had seen through the glass door of the rich merchant's shop last Christmas.
1000 lys brændte på de grønne grene, og brogede billeder, som dem der pyntede butiksvinduerne, så ned på hende.
1,000 lights burned on the green branches, and colorful pictures, like those that adorned the shop windows, looked down on her.
Den lille strakte begge hænder i vejret, da slukkedes svovlstikken.
The little girl stretched both hands up towards the sky, and then the match went out.
De mange julelys steg højere og højere, og nu så hun, at de var de klare stjerner.
The many Christmas lights rose higher and higher, and now she saw that they were the bright stars.
En af dem faldt og tegnede en lang ildstribe på himlen.
One of them fell and drew a long trail of fire across the sky.
Nu dør der en, sagde den lille.
Now someone is dying, said the little girl.
For hendes gamle mormor, som var den eneste, der havde været god mod hende, men nu var død, havde sagt, når en stjerne falder, går der en sjæl op til Gud.
Because her old grandmother, who was the only one who had been kind to her, but was now dead, had said, when a star falls, a soul goes up to God.
Hun strøg igen en svovlstik mod muren, og den lyste op omkring hende.
She struck another match against the wall, and it lit up around her.
I glansen stod den gamle mormor, så klar, så skinnende, så mild og velsignet.
In the glow stood the old grandmother, so clear, so shining, so gentle and blessed.
Mormor, råbte den lille, tag mig med, jeg ved, du er væk, når svovlstikken brænder ud, væk ligesom den varme kakkelovn, den dejlige gåsesteg og det store, velsignede juletræ.
Grandmother, cried the little girl, take me with you. I know you are gone when the match burns out, gone like the warm stove, the delicious roast goose and the big, blessed Christmas tree.
Og hun strøg ivrigt resten af svovlstikkerne, der var i bundet.
And she eagerly struck the rest of the matches in the bundle.
Hun ville holde fast i mormor.
She wanted to hold on to her grandmother.
Svovlstikkerne lyste med en sådan glans, at det var klarere end ved dagslys.
The matches shone with such brightness that it was clearer than daylight.
Mormor havde aldrig før været så smuk, så stor. Hun løftede den lille pige op på sin arm, og de fløj afsted i glans og glæde, højt, højt op i himlen, hvor der ikke var kulde, sult eller frygt, de var hos Gud.
Grandmother had never been so beautiful, so big. She lifted the little girl up in her arms, and they flew away in glory and joy, high, high up in the sky, where there was no cold, hunger, or fear. They were with God.
Men i en krog ved huset sad den lille pige med røde kinder og smil om munden, død, frosset ihjel den sidste aften i det gamle år.
But in a corner by the house sat the little girl with red cheeks and a smile on her face, dead, frozen to death on the last evening of the old year.
Nytårsmorgen gik op over det lille lig, der sad med svovlstikkerne, hvoraf et knippe var næsten brændt op.
New Year's morning dawned over the little body, which sat with the matches, of which a bundle was almost burnt up.
Hun havde villet varme sig, sagde man.
She wanted to warm herself, people said.
Ingen vidste, hvad smukt hun havde set, i hvilken glans hun med sin gamle mormor var gået ind til nytårsglæde.
No one knew how beautiful things she had seen, in what glory she had gone with her old grandmother to the New Year's joy.